As I mentioned earlier, the work of physical or biological anthropologists falls into one particular branch of American anthropology. It is concerned in this case, or this branch is concerned, with the biological nature of human life. And it asks really three questions. First, how have we changed over time? It employs a secular model of evolution when it answers this question or addresses this question. It asks how we have adapted to environmental conditions and stresses, and how they have changed over time. It looks at the geography of a changing planet, the geology of a changing planet, and the changing climate. And then third, this biological branch addresses how human cultural adaptations have helped us to survive. How has our technology helped us? How has our social behaviors, including clothing, food, and family, helped us to survive? Biological or physical anthropologists, then, have to ask themselves, where does culture fit in the biological history of humanity? Given the interests of this branch of American anthropology, there are many specializations within it. Some of these include the work of primatologists. They give us a better understanding of primate biology, communication and its limitations, and behavior. Others are medical anthropologists. They're interested in patterns of human health, mortality, and disease. Still others are bioarchaeologists. They're interested in the preservation and study of human remains. And others, forensic anthropologists. They're interested in working with criminologists in crime scene analyses, DNA research, and issues of paternity and heredity. Let's take for a moment a closer look at this idea of folk knowledge. We talked about a folk model and an analytic model in our last presentation. This is a quote from the work of Anne McElroy and Patricia Townsend. They are medical anthropologists looking at the ecology of health and disease among Greenlandic Inuits. You don't have to memorize or write down this entire quote, but let's analyze it for just a moment. They write, "An important aspect of the training of the young was to pass on knowledge and awareness about the sea ice, the snow, the weather, animal behavior, geography, and navigation. Children learning not only from books, but they learned from observing others and from trial and error and participation, which became highly sensitive to subtle environmental cues such as shifts in the wind, changing humidity, the color of ice, the relentlessness of the caribou herd. This sensitivity, which was again part of how a child was raised, was extremely important for survival." In this quote, Dr. Patricia Townsend, associate professor in anthropology at the State University in Buffalo, and Anne McElroy, a professor of medicine and public health at the University of North Carolina, took really a closer look at two themes. First, the great range of folk knowledge that is encapsulated in Inuit life and how children are raised. And second, an understanding of the cultural and biological adaptations that are part of the Inuit history. The quote references geography, ecology, nutrition, biology, and demography, all characteristics or qualities of human life that are important to the work of biological anthropologists. So what does this mean in terms of what medical anthropologists or biological anthropologists in general study? Well, they take a look at really 5 qualities of human culture as they attempt to understand how humans biologically relate to their environment. They look at the ethnic background of a people. They look at the background of a people in relation to their heredity or their DNA. They take a look at how they are currently living in the environment today. They look at how that environment has changed. And they take a look at The perspectives that people have regarding sex, food, companionship, age, pain, healthcare, mental health care, and a variety of other subjects. Let's take a closer look now at this idea of heredity because it is so very important to the work of biological anthropologists. An early name that we'll want to associate with this concept is Gregor Johann Mendel. Born in 1822, his research really dispelled the notion of blended inheritance. He worked with true breeding plants and developed ideas regarding how traits were expressed from one generation to the next. And he came up with the concept, ultimately, of the genotype. Gregor Mendel's work in inheritance became a very important aspect to the ideas and the research of Charles Darwin and his mechanism known as natural selection. So let's take a moment just to review. The physical or biological branch of American anthropology is a branch of anthropology that, like all anthropology, studies human biology and culture. But what it tries to do is really create a strong paradigmatic link between these two concepts. Physical anthropologists, or biological anthropologists, as you can imagine, have a very lengthy timetable. They ask, how has the Earth changed over its entire history? And how does that change over its entire history relate to changes within not only human biology and culture, but also the biology and behaviors of other complex mammals, such as primates? Often we understand ourselves indirectly. In doing so, we find ourselves really asking questions about how plants and animals have adapted to climate change over its lengthy history. We then extrapolate from this ideas about how we may have adapted over the lengthy history of the planet. As you can imagine, to explain the unique diversity of life in the biosphere today, physical anthropologists draw heavily upon the work of geologists and astronomers. For this reason, they recognize primates to have emerged within a developmental model nearly 65 million years ago, and that these early either proto-primates or initially true primates are ancestral to all primates living throughout a diverse variety of environments on the planet today. So how do we make sense of the diversity of life on the planet today and the diversity of life that we see fossilized in the geological history of the planet? Biological anthropologists turn to the work of Carolus Linnaeus. Born in 1707, he gives us a system of nomenclature which provides scientists with an understanding of the biological nature of the planet, its timetable, and how it may or may not have changed over time. The work of Carolus Linnaeus and his system of taxonomy is recognized not only in the work of evolutionary biologists, but also comparative biologists. Comparison becomes the important process by which we integrate the fossil record and the living record. As a result, there is another specialization within the branch of physical anthropology referred to as paleoanthropology. Paleoanthropologists study the biological diversity recognized in the fossil record. They attempt to understand the context of how the fossil record formed and what it can tell us about changes in life on the planet. They relate the biology of the fossil record to the unique biology of living animals today, specifically primates and humans. In the next few lectures, we'll take a look at how physical anthropologists today explain the biodiversity of the fossil record and how they utilize that biodiversity to understand how primates, including humans, have adapted to a changing climate and a changing planet over time.